Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fatu Network News Review today, 7th July 2018. I am Omar Wale. In the headlines today, 8 prison guards arrested. According to the spokesperson for the Gambia Prison Service, has said that they have arrested 7 prison guards in connection with the escaping of several prisoners at Old Joshua Prison. I will start with the Standard newspaper, and it said the public relation officer of the Gambia Prison Service has said that 8 of the 12 prison guards on duty at Joshua Prison on the evening of Thursday, 3rd August, have been arrested and are helping with the investigation into the dramatic escape of 14 inmates. We have been receiving conflicting reports from different media outlets. Some said 15, some said 13, some said 12, some said 23. But the spokesperson has said that now 14 inmates escaped. But he has also told the Standard during the interview that they managed to escape 1. Out of these 14 people, 1 is Senegalese and the remaining ones are Gambians. And according to the spokesperson, at the time we had an interview with him, he said their crimes include petty possession of drugs, drug possession, burglary, conspiracy, among others. And according to Superintendent Momodu Sise, said that 8 were guards directly posted around the cell area and the back cells when more than a dozen inmates made an escape using roof of the main cells. He said that the officers were on guard when several of these inmates escaped. And the reason he gave at the time was that the alarm system was not functioning, and the building also is kind of old, and as well as the officers were also on patrol, were all factors that led to these people being escaped from the Old Joshua Prison. But he, however, told the Standard newspaper that they arrested 1 and they are still on hunting the others with the help of other sister security services. Vicar General asked government to tackle encroachment of Christian cemeteries. That is, Father Emilia Sambo, the Vicar General of the Gambia Christian Council, has called on the Gambian authorities to do something to protect Christian cemeteries and praying grounds that have been gradually encroached upon at various places. He made this interview during an interview with the Standard newspaper, and he said the cemeteries and the praying ground that have been gradually encroached at various places includes Mariama Brikamaba, Kunkujang Mariama, and several other places. Father said, Father Sambo said, there are leased land that have been used for over 33 years as praying grounds in the country, especially in Kunkujang, has been occupied by someone who came from nowhere and started digging foundation. He told the Standard newspaper. And he also said that they have informed the physical planning and the office of the Inspector General of Police, and since then they did. And he also said that the cemetery also in Kotu has been used by people, and part of it is being used by women and digging bones. They are using it as a garden and when digging bones as well. But when they contacted the PRO of the prison Gambia Police Force, Superintendent David Kujabi, said his findings have so far not yet revealed any complaint case of Vicar General was referring to, but promised to furnish the Standard newspaper with anything that come up on the matter. A few weeks ago, there was a scuffle, I can say, at the Tanene, where they claimed that their cemetery was occupied by someone, and when we had an interview with that guy, we also cleared that, and the APRC condemns attack on GRT's cameraman. That story was, we had a story here yesterday. The APRC said it has come to their knowledge that the National Executive Committee of Island for Patriotic Reorientation and Construction, that some people confronted and seized the camera of GRT's crew. They were at Bujinga at the burial of Fatu Asami Bojang, and some people came and they said they got instruction from the former president that they should not film the burial, and the camera was confiscated, and the cameraman alleged that he was manhandled by some people. The camera has been retrieved, but the Director General of the Gambia Radio and Television Services said yesterday that they are waiting for the investigation. Negligence causes jaws from prison break. And another story, the spokesperson of the same Gambia Prison Service has raised an eyebrows in what he regarded to be one of the major prison break in the country. Well, according to him, it's not a prison break, it is a prisoner escape. But they are also given a report here that 23 prisoners escaped from the remand wing. And the ex-finance attaché at the Gambian embassy in France also appeared in court. That is Mr. Faisal Bojang, was arraigned before High Court in Banjul, presided over by Justice Olaji Ojuma on economic crimes and related offenses. According to the Point newspaper, the prosecution alleged that the accused Faisal Bojang in 2014, while serving as a financial attaché at the Gambian embassy in France, willfully and recklessly caused monetary loss to the government of the Gambia to tune of over 27,500 euros withdrawing from the said money without any authorization. The Minister of Foreign Affairs also clarifies on the closure of the Gambian embassy in Dakar. They said it has come to their notice that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation and Gambians abroad of the Republic of the Gambia, that the Standard newspaper published it in its issue on Monday, 30th July 2018, an opinion piece in its viewpoint column titled "Our Gambian Embassy in Dakar should be," quote, and categorically stating in the first paragraph that the piece that the Embassy of the Republic of the Gambia in Senegal should be shut down. And there's also saying that the Fatu Network also carried a similar story in the publication on the 29th of July 2018 under the headline, "The Gambian Embassy in Dakar should be closed down." But the Minister of Foreign Affairs said the ministry is also informed that the same news is making circles on various social media platforms. And according to the press release, the Embassy of the Republic of the Gambia in Dakar received an email from one Ibrahima El Damva, who claimed to be the president of the School of Business and Public Administration at the University of the Gambia, requesting the embassy to provide accommodation to 60 Gambian students in Dakar. But according to the press release, the Minister of Foreign Affairs responded to them saying they did not have the resources to fund that. And the Foria also is saying, reporting GPU condemns the attack on GRT's crew by APRC supporters and security. And APRC as well condemns the attack on the assault on GRT's crew. We also received a press release from the press statement from Article 19 and regarding the incident in Bujinga. And they're also saying that, and it reads, the attention of Article 19 West Africa was drawn to the unfortunate attack on Saturday, 4th August 2018 on the news crew of GRTS during the funeral of the late Fatu Assambi Bojang, mother of Yahya Jammeh, former president of the Gambia. We condemn this and any other action by any person or group of people that infringe on the rights of journalists and the media to carry out their duties and devoid on intimidation. Article 19 awaits the commencement of full and thorough investigation and conclusion of the same, and would like to remind both political parties and activists and security personnel of their responsibility towards guaranteeing the safety of media men and women who remain pivotal of entrenching democracy in the Gambia. So I think I have somebody on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Coach Pasamas Jao, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Omar, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm not sure. Did you call via video or is just a voice call?
I'm seeing myself. I think it's video.
Oh, I can see you now. Thank you so much for your time, Coach.
Thank you. Anytime, bro.
You had an interview with Hot FM on the political show.
Yes.
And it was also printed on the Standard newspaper saying Duga spokesman accused Barrow of sacrificing coalition agenda. To start with, can you put this thing into context? Meaning, what do you mean by sacrificing the coalition agenda?
Well, I think the first correction that needs to be made is that I am not the spokesperson of Duga.
Yes.
The spokesperson of Duga is Sophie Cisse.
Yeah.
I am the vice chair of Duga.
Vice chair. Okay.
And the whole interview centered around the president's Meet the People store.
Yeah.
And I had argued that looking at the president and how he was going about the Meet the People store, which is a constitutionally mandated tour,
yeah,
to talk to the vote to the Gambian people, understand their concerns, and then at least tell them remedies to their concerns. We saw a president who turned it into the coming out party of the Barrow Youth Movement for Development, or whatever he calls it.
Yeah.
So I believe that I'm 100% convinced that the president, Mr. Barrow, is really going away from the agenda that brought him to power. And that is the corrective agenda to run a transition government and then step away and allow somebody else to be elected in a free and fair elections. And what he has done, in essence, from my own point of view, is that he substituted the agenda with his personal agenda of how to stay in power longer than the period that he had agreed with his colleagues.
Again, this is the president who has been leveled. Some said he's clueless. I think I have a problem with... I think the cameraman, the technical crew will call you again, Coach. Just a moment. That is Coach Pasa Majau. He had an interview with the Hot FM political show, and it was printed on the Standard newspaper yesterday, and I called him to shed light or clarify on some of the points he made during that interview. According to Coach, said that he has said that President Barrow has substituted the coalition agenda with his personal agenda to further remain in power as long.
Hello?
Yes. Well, okay. I think the line is clear now. Okay.
All right.
To continue with, I said Barrow has been somebody who has been leveled. Some said he's an accidental president. Some said he's clueless. He has been given all kinds of names. So how can a man of that nature sacrifice an agenda put forward by several political leaders?
Well, people have the right to interpret the president anyhow they want. But from my own perspective, what I see is a guy who has become very savvy in his dealings. And you look at how the people that he has surrounded himself with. He is a guy, when he came, Ousainou used to be the godfather. Now, those that are around him are the Sidi Jais and others. We've seen him now take very powerful positions in his government and hand it to people who, like the Minister of Finance and the Minister of External Affairs. These are one of the most senior positions in this government, and he's decided to give it to people who had, ties with Jammeh or the APRC. So to me, I'm not talking about cluelessness. I'm talking about somebody who is really now, I think, very interested in finding ways of staying in power for as long as practically possible.
So as far as you are concerned, those who have ties with Jammeh should not be in those kind of positions?
No, well, especially those, Omar, that are subjected to the commission. Let's look at the Minister of Finance, for example.
Right.
He's one of those who are demanded by the commission to declare their assets. So the commission would not just, you cannot establish a commission whose objective it is to find faults from the former regime. They ask you to declare your assets. Omar, you are here. Nobody is asking you to declare your assets because nobody thought that you've done anything. Other people had gone through the commission. They've not been asked to declare their assets. The reason why the commission found it necessary to ask Mr. Jai to declare his assets is because of they believe that maybe he was so close to Jammeh that chances are he must have gotten money or wealth through suspicious ways. So to have that guy now man the Ministry of Finance, to me is a slap. not only to the victims of Jammeh, but the whole concept of even establishing a commission of inquiry in the first place. What would have thought would have been a good practice would have to make sure that you wait for the commission report to come out. If people are cleared from from not committing any crimes, then you can definitely rightfully appoint those people, but you cannot appoint people whose names are being bandied around in the commissions of inquiries.
Okay. Another thing is, like you said, Barrow sacrificing, but others said it is not Barrow. It is all of them, nearly all of them, because the fact that they split it up during the parliamentary election shows that there was no coalition in place. It's just a mere pronunciation, people saying coalition, but there is no coalition in place. And looking at what happened recently.
Well, of course, the coalition has its problems too. But again, we almost remember that the reason why Barrow went to the IEC and presented a coalition manifesto that clearly stipulated that if they were to win, they would serve for 3 years as an interim government, organize elections and go their way, and that the presidential candidate, the flag bearer Barrow, would not participate in the subsequent elections, and that he would participate as an independent candidate. So that is clearly a coalition. Whether the coalition is fractured or not, Barrow was brought to power through a coalition. It was not by any single political party. It was brought to power by the collective coalition of political parties and civil society. So irrespective of what happens in the coalition, we still have a coalition government because it was through a coalition that Barrow became a president. So he is at least a coalition president.
You talked about the mosque, the smart street lights, and describing them as white elephant because you said it is not going to benefit farmers in any way. Or is it that whatever does not benefit farmers or poor people should not be in place? Are you talking about? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, I think whoever wrote that article, I don't like criticizing the press. I don't think did great service to the interview.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking maybe she or he got tired during the transcribing the interview and decided to just do whatever. But the argument that I was making here was that to me the Meet the People store did not achieve its goal, because the goal of the tour would have been one of hope to the Gambian people, but it ended up being relegated and substituted by an argument about 60 mosques that have been built here and there, just to paraphrase, because I don't remember everything I said.
Right.
But what I was saying too is that in spite of our poverty, for 53 years, the Gambian people remain live in abject poverty, especially most of these farmers who work so hard, but you still cannot realize gains from their hard work. That going to these Meet the People store and turning into a fanfare thing with the drumming and dancing and all these promises that may not be immediately beneficial to the farmers, who are now more worried about their crops, who are more worried about their seeds, who are more worried about fertilizers, who are more worried about the markets that they would sell their seeds if they were to their crops if they were to harvest it, because building 60 mosques is not benefiting those people. Talking about Wi-Fi, internet Wi-Fi or whatever, it's not going to benefit those people in their needs, because the majority of the people's concern had nothing to do with lack of Wi-Fi. Their concerns are good hospitals. Their concerns are good roads. Their concerns are fertilizers. Their concerns are seeds. Their concerns are markets. Their concerns are other issues, electricity and all these things. These are the concerns of the Gambian people, not Wi-Fi and all these things. So that's what I was saying in essence, that at the end of the day, the biggest loser in this would be the poor farmer and the poor Gambians, who would continue to live in abject poverty because they have been promised white elephant projects instead of things that would alleviate their problems.
We have been hearing this all the time. Barrow is surrounded by people who are not competent. Barrow is good, but those who are surrounding him are the bad people. And you also mentioned, it was also stated in your interview that people Barrow has around him have no political capital and credibility. Who are these people?
Well, I'll name one name, Sidi Njie.
But they are quite...
The man has no political capital, no credibility, and I think that is the biggest insult to whenever I see Sidi Njie, at the airport,
Yes.
bidding Barrow farewell or welcoming him back, I get angry. And my anger is as a result of this man who was the face of Jammeh's defiance that saw a lot of Gambians. Omar, you are a journalist. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Thousands of Gambians, in their tens of thousands, packing their things, running away from our country, thinking that there would be war. During all this time, there was one person who was Jammeh's face, talking to the people, talking to the international community. It was Sidi Njie. And he was adamant that Jammeh was not going to move an inch.
Yes.
Now, to have this guy within less than 2 years of Barrow's presidency, to have this guy so close to Barrow and the State House, I believe it's a terrible slap in the face of the Gambian people.
But like the saying goes, there is no permanent friend or permanent enemy in politics, but there is permanent interest. You talked about Sidi Njie, but we have seen similar situation in Ivory Coast. During the political crisis, you may remember the former President Laurent Gbagbo's brother-in-law, Charles Blé Goudé, had similarly and said Laurent Gbagbo is not going anywhere when he lost election. Musa Ibrahim, during the Arab Spring in Libya, he stood by Gaddafi until the day he was killed. So, but just yesterday we have seen President Lassana Ouattara forgiving the wife of former President Laurent Gbagbo, Simone Gbagbo. Don't you think a similar thing happened in this country? Although a lot happened that left a bad taste in many mouths, but they say let's put that at the back behind and we move on.
Well, they are different. They are completely different. Because if you look at our situation now, Omar, we have a commission of inquiry looking into Jammeh's finances. We have another commission, the TRRC,
right,
that is will be looking at the atrocities that have been committed under Jammeh. And so, to me, at least give that a chance to be exhausted first before you start forgiving people or allowing people within your circles. And I also do not believe in this notion of, oh, this man is good, the people that surrounded him. I believe that is a cop-out. Because at the end of the day, Barrow, I believe, is mature enough as a human being. He's a guy with 2 wives.
Right.
He has kids. So he should be able to have the judgment to determine who comes around him and who doesn't. If Barrow does not want you around him, you're not going around him.
No.
There are so many Gambians who maybe wanted to see him. He was not interested in seeing them. You know, we saw what they did. When the Ditari went to the Gambia, what did they tell them? They were telling them, oh, for you guys to meet the president, you have to write a letter to revoke, to denounce coup d'etat and all these things. He didn't want to see them because to them, they were not important to him. So he had conditions for them, that is, if they were to meet him. But for Sidi Njie, who was Jammeh's henchman during this whole process, when Gambia was really at its worst period, you know, and all these other people that were very close to Jammeh, today they are the ones hobnobbing with Barrow. So to me, that is the thing. Barrow, I believe, Omar, must understand that his government is not a normal one, in a way, in that it came as a result of a lot of hardship of Gambians, whether the killing of Gambians, whether the torturing of Gambians, whether the exiling of Gambians, and everything that came with it. So Gambian people are still hurt. Gambian people are still trying to overcome. So the last thing that you should do within 2 years of your ascension to the presidency, to act like you do not even remember anything that happened. Listen, Femi Peters died not too long ago, and we all know that Femi Peters' death, if there was a proper investigation done, could directly be linked to his incarceration. Solo Sentenc's death, Solo Koroma, and all those people who have died as a result of being incarcerated in jail, and the many others who are still sick. When I went to the victim center and saw this guy who came and handed me a note telling me that he was part of Jammeh's AIDS program, that his wife died from it. He has full-blown AIDS in his body. He is a victim. So the last thing they need is for this government to act like nothing had happened. Let's just start and have these people who were praising Jammeh and doing all this around us. Because to me, it's like, you know, different faces, but the same situation. So what I would urge President Barrow to do, I'm not asking you to go and put anybody in jail. That is not your job. But give the commissions the chance to be exhausted and see where the chips may fall. Now, if somebody is convicted and you feel that, because you have the prerogative of mercy, that you want to forgive somebody for some reason, at least that would have happened when justice was already done. But don't start acting the way that they are acting now before anybody had been given a chance to explain themselves what they may or may not have done during Jammeh's rule.
Do you think forgiveness can substitute justice?
I believe that there cannot be justice. You cannot substitute justice with forgiveness. You cannot. I believe that people must first pay for the actions, for their crimes. Whatever payment that is going to be will be determined by a court of law. But if you are convicted of a crime, then at least some part of justice might have happened. But you cannot also, Omar, forgive somebody who had not already been tried. Give them a chance to go through the process. So when they are exonerated, let them go their way. When they are convicted, then we can talk about forgiveness.
Yesterday, another story on the Standard newspaper was Imam Fati. He said, J.J. Rollins did horrible things in Ghana, worse things in Ghana, but he's still in exile. He's still living in Ghana. And trying to put things into context, he said, Jammeh should not live in exile. What do you make of Imam Fati's statement yesterday?
You know, Imam Fati, I think, has become one of the saddest people in that country. And I have made this conclusion that if I were to die in the Gambia, and the only imams that were available to take care of my body were the Imam Fatis and the Imam Kas, please throw me in the ocean and let the fish eat me rather than if I have these people bury me. This man has no shame. First of all, I do not expect anything different from Imam Fati because he is the same guy who, with his cohorts, were justifying Jammeh's illegal execution of prisoners. We all know that. So Imam Fati, to me, would never surprise me because the only way that Imam Fati would have surprised me is if Imam Fati came and said that he was denouncing Jammeh's crimes and he was coming to ask for redemption from Gambians because of his support of Jammeh's atrocities. Imam Fati has been consistently an enabler of Jammeh's atrocities. So nothing he says surprises me because to me, as far as I'm concerned, he has absolutely zero credibility.
You also mentioned the December 30th attackers as contributing towards bringing down the dictatorship, but some will argue that they could not make it and it was Gambians who went to the polls and eventually booted out Jammeh.
Well, you know, one can argue that. But let's look at what gave lead to December 30th. It was Kennedy who said that those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Right.
Gambians had gone through hell and back. We've done everything possible to make Yahya Jammeh to understand that we as a people deserve better treatment than we could ever get. He rebuffed us. Our people had gone through elections with Yahya Jammeh. The diasporans had worked towards establishing coalitions in the Gambia to challenge the dictatorship. Yahya rebuffed them. And it came to an extent where citizens of the Gambia who had nothing to lose by staying away from our politics and everything to lose by putting their lives on the line, decided that enough is enough. We have to go and at least try to remove this guy. They went there. They could have engaged in a gunfight and tried to kill people. But they did not. They got killed. But let's look at the people that are saying that, you know what, without Jammeh was removed through elections. Yes, of course, people voted him out. But it took the guns of ECOMIG, their jet fighters, to drive Jammeh away. Because we all know that when Jammeh said he was rejecting the results on the 9th, he meant it. The only thing that forced him out was the threat of him being killed by ECOMIG because if they were to come in. So if you look at it at the end of the day, everything came in play. Elections came in play. Fundraising came in play. Guns came in play. Every possible thing that you can think of came about and the Gambian people rising up finally, organizing themselves, uniting against somebody. Everything that we always work towards to ensure that Jammeh went out came into play, because I can guarantee you that if there was no threat of economy coming in there or another country coming in there to force him out, we would have had a similar situation that we've seen in Togo and other places, where they could have rejected the results and sat on and nothing would come out of it. We've seen it in Ivory Coast. When it happened, it had to take the intervention of France for Laurent Gbagbo to be arrested and whisked away. So the same fate faced the Gambia until ECOWAS, ECOMIG, and ECOWAS, the United Nations, and the AU, all came together and said, you know what, the only practical solution here to this problem is through military means, and this was why Jammeh was out. That is not to diminish the role of elections, because, of course, it is the key factor. But without also ECOMIG's intervention, Jammeh would have still been in power.
Finally, Coach Pasamba Jao.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, finally. What will be your final message?
Well, I just want to, say this to the government, that, listen, the Gambia belongs to all of us. We all have a role to play in it. We all have a lot at stake in that country. I believe every Gambian really wants the Gambia to be the most developed place in the world. Every Gambian, I believe, outside of Yahya Jammeh and some of his cronies, want to see a peaceful, everlasting peaceful Gambia. So the government must also understand that their critics are not people who hate the Gambia, but people who love the Gambia and maybe have a different view. Some people can be cynical enough to believe that, well, they don't love the country. But what I just want to say, finally, Omar, I am reading Barrow's 22-page lecture that he gave in Nigeria. And I just want President Barrow to understand that I believe it was a very well-written document. And most of the advices that he gave are very, very great advices. So what I want to urge him and his government is, don't just think that this speech was just for the graduates. But I think Barrow should own this speech and read it from time to time and ask himself whether he is living by those same ideals. And I believe if he is guided by some of the utterances that he made in that speech, he would become a very, very successful president. With that, Omar, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Coach Pasamba Jao, for your time.
Thank you.
That is Coach Pasamba Jao discussing the interview we had with the Standard newspaper, Hot FM, and it was printed on the Standard newspaper yesterday. Yesterday, our reporters went out at GRTS and they met, excuse me, one of the journalists who was involved in the attack at Bujinga during the burial of the former President Jammeh's mother. You may remember the journalist, the cameraman was assaulted and the camera was confiscated. So here is the report prepared by our reporters.
By replacing your SIM card at any official outlet with no loss of contact, the cost of bundle from the 3G SIM card is the same for the 4G SIM. And guess what? With the 4G SIM card, you can also connect to the 3G network as well.
This is so cool. I'll replace my 3G SIM card right away to the real 4G SIM and receive my very own 1 gigabyte for free.
You know, on Saturday, the late mother of the former President Yahya Jammeh was flown into the Banjul International Airport from Equatorial Guinea. So as usual, GRTS, the Gambia State Radio and Television Services, we were there to cover the ceremony. But it turned out to be a very hostile experience. We weren't allowed to go near the aircraft to film the coffin as it landed. So we were there as National TV just to give that, to show the nation that we are brief and our mother is being laid to rest. And when I called my camera to come out of the main compound and to go on top of the Gele, one of the vehicles, to take an aerial shot of the crowd because it was a huge crowd and we need to portray it in our reports. And while he was doing it, I was on the other side of the crowd trying to arrange for my interviewees. And then after some minutes, I could not see him. I tried to call him. The network was bad, and I ran back to where we stationed our own GRTS vehicle, waiting for him to come back, only to see him running back to me, empty hands without the camera, and shouting, look, I've been battered, I've been beaten, the camera has been seized, I'm running away for my life. And then when I looked behind me, I saw a mob, a large crowd, following us and threatening with the words, get out of here, get out of here. So my driver was also in time, and then he just put the engine on, and then we drove. But meanwhile, some older folks were trying to restrain the youth from reaching us on time. We say, when you want to describe a journalist, you can say it this way. A journalist is like a torchbearer providing light for the lighter society, and depending on the way you light, others see. We are only out there to sensitize society, to give information to society, to tell society what is happening every other day. And I think information is food. So it's like we are feeding the society with information. So why should we be harassed? We should not be harassed. I think we should be embraced. So whether it's APRC or any other party or any other individual, I think we should be friends to all, and they should see us as friends.
From AfriCell, it's always real and it's for free.
Where AfriCell goes, no one has the speed to follow.
Welcome back. After that short story prepared by Jaka Sise, he had an interview with Louis Mendy, who was involved in the attack. I have here with me the Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union, Sekou Jammeh. Sekou, welcome.
Thank you.
The Gambia Press Union issued a statement condemning the attack on the GRTS crew, the APRC executive, and I've received one from Article 19. But this attack on journalists has been a continuous thing. Keba Jevan was attacked, and this thing also happened. What will be your message to the people out there who constantly attack journalists in doing their job?
Well, there are different people that attack journalists. Government officials, politicians, political party activists, the police, even ordinary citizens sometimes attack journalists. So, but one message should be given to all of them, that journalists are here to do work for you and not to antagonize you. And no one should take a journalist for an enemy. That's a simple message that every Gambian should get. Can anyone imagine? I was once sitting listening to Mahdi Jawari, and he brought in a scenario where can anyone actually imagine going for a whole day or 1 week or 1 month without reading a newspaper, whether online or in print, without listening to radio, the information that people give you, without watching television, the information that you get, and how useful that information is to you. If we sit down and reflect on, that very useful role that the journalists play in society, then we should accept them no matter what the circumstances are.
I think I'm getting some technical problem. They said you have to speak loud a bit, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this another thing, like you said, journalists, individuals, government officials, and how can journalists be protected in covering such events? Not only the burial, but even in press conference we have seen where politicians will come with party supporters when it's supposed to be only the politicians and the journalists, and sometimes things turn ugly.
Well, it comes with training, because every profession has occupational risk, and journalism comes with a lot of occupational risks. So it is important that the media houses and the journalists themselves get to learn some lessons on how to protect themselves while covering hostile situations. And they should protect themselves both online and offline, because online is where, war is being waged against journalists now. you know, and then we will get there eventually. Even now that even already we're there. When you put out something, sometimes you see some people sending messages to you in your inbox, threatening you, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna do this to you. I mean, those things are happening. But then it's important we are trained on how to save us, on how to operate in a very hostile environment. I mean, using all the safety trainings that we have. But besides that, the primary duty of promoting safety of journalists lies on the government. The UN already has a plan of action on the safety of journalists, and you know, we've had some engagements with the government, and we encourage them to implement that plan of action. It's very crucial because the government should be there to protect the members of the fourth estate.
So, yeah, to enforce or what to say. But when do you think this thing has happened once, you know, one second time? The director of GRTS said they will not accept the camera until they investigate and so on. So what do you think will happen to these attackers? Because similar thing happened when Jefang was attacked at UDP, and even at the time minister labeled him as a agent for one of the political parties, and several other people also face similar. So what should happen to people that attack physically and even seize equipment from journalists?
Well, in the case of Jefang Keba, I think Mai must be commended for it, because that was the first time that we had a whole minister, interior minister for that matter, coming out after having engagement with the journalists to apologize for the actions of his supporters. And he did that so unreservedly. And that must be quite commendable. And that was the position of the GPU at the time. We said if we were able to bring the minister to a table with Jefang, I mean, to discuss this issue, and you know, for the minister to come out, that was quite really something to be commended. And you know, we thought that that would have served as a lesson for everyone, but ultimately it didn't. But in terms of what should happen afterwards, when it continues to occur, is that the full force of the law should be applied. When a journalist gets attacked, the police should investigate that matter and get the suspects. If they are found to have breached the right of the journalist, they should take that person to court and charge that person with relevant, criminal conduct. And then, the courts will now determine, because if we don't see the police taking some proactive actions in terms of, charging these people, prosecuting them, and perhaps the court sentencing them, then there will be a continuation of this kind of attacks on journalists.
Today is your bad, so I don't want to keep you so much here. So finally, what would be your final message?
Well, my final message is that, especially to the police and to the political parties, after Jammeh left, I mean, these people have been attacking journalists a lot. A lot of perpetration came from police and political party activists. So I am calling on them to please to desist from that kind of behavior. It doesn't support our democracy.
Okay, viewers, that is the Secretary General of the Gambia Press Union, Sekou Jammeh, discussing the attack on the journalists recently at the murder of the former president who passed on in Equatorial Guinea. During her burial, journalists were attacked and the equipment were seized. And the GPU issued a statement. Article 19 also issued a statement. And the APRC executive as well issued a statement condemning the attack. So viewers, that's all we have for you today. And from me and my crew, thank you so much for your time.